So thank you all for being here today. Welcome to the New Jersey Council for the Humanities info session about our Humanities Lab program. My name is Gigi Naglek. I'm the Director of Programs here at NJCH, and I'm the Program Director for this particular program. I'm joined by my fantastic colleague, Ali Marchesani, who serves as our Program Coordinator for Community History. Ali, would you like to say hello?
Hi, I'm Allie. So I'm the program coordinator for Humanities Lab and also Community History here at NJCH. And I'm a public history grad student at Rutgers Camden, about to finish up my degree in May.
Woohoo! It's going to be great. So for those of you who might be new to the Humanities Council, NJCH is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're not a state agency. It's one of the things that is most often misunderstood about the council. We are a state partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities, one of the 56 state and jurisdictional humanities councils in the United States. And our mission is to explore, cultivate, and champion the public humanities to strengthen New Jersey's diverse community. And I think I could also say our diverse communities, since we've got lots of them. So Humanities Lab is a lot about inquiry and experimentation. So in that spirit of inquiry, we have set out a series of questions that we're going to attempt to answer here in our info session today. This is our agenda. We're going to talk about why is this a lab? What does a humanities lab mean? What are the components of the program? Who is the program for? What are some important dates that you need to know? And most importantly, how do you apply if you want to apply? So I'm going to keep talking for another moment and hit this first question. Why a lab? Well, very simply, when we think about the humanities, we find experimentation to be as foundational to humanities-based work as it is to what we usually think of when we're thinking about experimentation, which is in science. We as humanities professionals need time and space to push our practice, to learn new things, to experiment, and hopefully to get to know each other as well. Furthermore, everyone gets into ruts or loses creativity from time to time. I know I certainly do. And especially now, as we're thinking about this new normal, this sort of vaguely post-pandemic period, we really feel at NJCH that we want to support a spirit of experimentation and growth in all of the organizations that we support, who are really dedicated to creating amazing arts, cultural, humanities experiences for the people of New Jersey. So that's what we're doing here. We're feeding our own creativity. We're helping you to find people who care about the same kinds of things that you do. And I will pass this off to Allie to continue.
Okay, so there are three major program components for Humanities Lab, and those are learning, funding, and community. And I'll get into more detail for each of those. We can go to the next slide. So in terms of learning, we facilitate that through cohort sessions, which involve guest speakers and plenty of case studies of public humanities work going on in New Jersey and all across the country. These sessions will take place in person as well as virtually on Zoom. And another aspect of the learning is that we will meet individually for individual meetings with each organization to ensure that everyone's project is developing the way they would like it to, and also to share resources for the specific needs of each organization. There will be some assignments along the way, and then the final product will be a new project plan and budget for each organization to launch a humanities-based project in their communities. Go to the next slide. In terms of funding, there is a $500 participation stipend that is given to each of the selected organizations. That's simply for their participation in the program, for attending sessions. And then there is the option for additional funding of up to $5,000 for organizations to pilot their new projects in the year following the program. And these final awards are actually made by the cohort of Humanities Lab participants themselves. And what that means is we'll all meet together Each organization will present their project plans and budgets to the whole cohort, who will then give feedback and eventually approve their plans. And so don't worry, there's no chance that your project plans and budgets will be rejected. It's just an opportunity to give feedback and make notes. So that funding is guaranteed if you submit for it, and the only question is the final amount. So you don't have to request all $5,000. You can request $4,000 if that's what you need. And if you determine that you don't want to pilot your project at that point, it's totally fine. But one thing to keep in mind is that you would have to join regular and competitive grant cycles for future funding opportunities if you decide to go forth with that project in the future. Go to the next slide. And one of the most important aspects of this program is, of course, the community that comes along with it. So we understand that the work that you're doing within your organizations can oftentimes be very isolating, particularly for small organizations. And the great thing about this program is that it introduces you to a whole cohort of participants who are just like you, who are interested in learning new ways of doing their work and gaining inspiration from each other. So that's one thing that this program values. And in addition to that, you'll also have the guest speakers who are doing interesting public humanities work in New Jersey and beyond that will be within your community as well. You can ask them questions beyond just when they join us for sessions, and they're really a resource for you throughout the program and beyond. And then in addition to that, we'll have optional cohort meetups after the program for ongoing community support, to give each other updates on what you've been doing with your projects, gain resources, advice, etc. You can go to the next slide. In terms of who should apply, we accept applications from New Jersey-based organizations who are doing or who want to do public humanities work. Those organizations should be nonprofits or state or entities of state and local government. And we also accept applications from unincorporated organizations or those who are operating on an ad hoc basis. And it is required that every organization, to be eligible for this program, that they're based in New Jersey, of course. Unfortunately, we don't accept applications from NJCH grantees or those participating in other NJCH programs like Community History or Informed NJ. Those organizations aren't eligible, as well as past Humanities Lab participants aren't eligible to apply again at this time. So I don't think that applies to anyone here today, but just wanted to mention that. Then we also have some special considerations that we really value applications and keep an eye out for applications that come from small organizations or those that have a budget of less than $500,000, organizations that prioritize the perspectives of traditionally marginalized people. We're also very excited to see applications from organizations that are non-humanities missions, such as those in the arts, social services, community groups, cultural organizations. We really value that different perspective that these groups often bring, and think that there's room for very creative projects when they're interdisciplinary like that. And it's also good to have a diverse cohort that kind of feeds into each other's creativity and brainstorming. So you have to want to do humanities work to apply and be eligible for this program, but you don't have to have a humanities mission, essentially. And one other special consideration is for organizations that have not received NJCH funding in the recent past. And that's all from me for now.
So it's very important. One of the main questions we get about Humanities Lab is about the funding, but we want to be really clear that Humanities Lab is not a grant program. When you apply for a grant, you really need to know what you're doing. For Humanities Lab, you actually need to not know what you're doing. Grants are very DIY. Humanities Lab is a learning program first, project development and award second. It's true, even when it refers to incubation grants, which are our grants that are for planning and development, the distinction is more nuanced, I recognize. But in an incubation grant, you do still need to have a defined idea and a defined process established, even if it turns out you may do something else in the very end. Not so with Humanities Lab. It's almost like a pre-incubation grant project or a facilitated incubation grant. Humanities Lab can actually help you to define a project idea and think through a process. It's all about process. Humanities Lab is all about process. You might have ideas coming into this for projects or themes or areas that you want to investigate, but we ask that you hold your ideas lightly. The program is about developing a new project through a cohort-oriented process, and it's also a decent time commitment through this summer. So if you have already done development work and you really know what you're going to be doing, don't waste your time on this. We do have grants, and in fact, our grant applications for the spring are open right now. You can submit an LOI to start your grant application process by March 31st, and we will have another round happening in the fall with that opening most likely in September. So just to review really quickly, grants vary DIY, Humanities Lab facilitated. In a grant, your project is defined. In Humanities Lab, your project really may not be defined at all yet. A grant is about planning or doing. Humanities Lab is very much about learning and developing. So Humanities Lab might be for you if you have an idea for a project, but you need time and most importantly, support to develop it. If you want to experiment with new ways of engaging with audiences and to learn about ways that others have tried to engage with audiences in new and exciting ways, if you have too many ideas and you simply need to sort through them and prioritize, if you feel like you're stuck in a rut, need a creativity boost, this is a great program for you. If you're really seeking a community of peers, and we mentioned this in particular for small organizations that might not have people to bounce ideas off of within your organization, we can be your people. And also, of course, if you're not coming from a humanities missioned organization, if you'd like to learn more about the public humanities, if you don't know that much yet, but want to learn more and think about how this can impact your work in useful ways, Humanities Lab just might be for you. All right. Allie, I'll turn it over.
Okay, so the important dates to keep in mind. Most importantly, the application is now open, so you can apply, and the deadline is April 30th of this year. The application is very short, and it's designed for you to tell us a bit more about your interest, but you don't have to have any specific project ideas yet. We want to emphasize that. These ideas are welcome, but we ask that you hold them lightly. Unlike a grant application, as I said, it's unnecessary for you to know what you're going to be doing specifically, and it's actually more competitive. Those who don't know what they want to do will be less competitive, essentially. So there is an interview as part of the application project process, so you can sign up for that interview now through May 10th. They're 30 minutes with at least one person from your organization to participate in that interview, but more are welcome to join as well. And it's really just a time for you to tell a bit more about your interest in the program, and most importantly, for us to answer your questions that you may have about the program. You can do the interview before or after you submit your application, and if you have a lot of questions, you're welcome to schedule the interview sooner rather than later. Just feel free to email us about that. You'll be notified of if you're selected by May 17th, and then we'll have 4 cohort sessions this summer during the weeks listed here. There's no exact dates yet, but we'll work on those once we have selected organizations. Some of these will be in person and some will be virtual. Then for the rest of the summer, we'll have individual meetings to help prepare your project proposals. And then you'll submit your final project plans and budgets in early September, when we'll meet again one more time in late September or early October to finalize those awards, give feedback, etc. And then from October 2024 to September 2025 is when you'll be piloting your projects if you decide to go through with them.
Great. So if you're ready, and you want to apply. First thing you need to do, if you have not done so already, is go onto our website, njhumanities.org. It's under the programs tab. You'll find Humanities Lab, and that will give you all the information you need for the program. Make sure you read through the guidelines completely to make sure to confirm your eligibility, and hopefully it'll answer any questions you have. Everything we've said today is contained in those guidelines, so that's it's not like we're hiding information from you. Um, there's an apply link on the website, which will take you to our application and administration system, our award application and administration system. If you've ever applied for a grant or any other program or a sponsorship from NJCH, chances are you already have a login in that system. If you've forgotten your password, there is a forgot your password link, not a problem. You can reset it. And if you've never worked with NJCH in the past, it's certainly no problem. You'll just have to register yourself for the system, which you can, it's very simple, simple instructions. You'll be able to see it right there. So I'm throwing in one additional bonus question, which is who can help? And the answer is, of course, us. Allie and I run this program together. So reaching out to us directly is always an option. And just to be clear, other NJCH staff members can absolutely answer your questions as well. We're just the ones who know the program very well. Don't forget that a lot of the questions that come up can be answered at njhumanities.org, which is available to you 24/7, as long as you have an internet connection. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen so I can see all of your faces, and we can take any questions that you might have. Feel free to unmute yourself or put things in the chat. And I think we've got one in the chat, at least one in the chat already.
I think you answered it though, so don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're involved, if you have an open grant or if you are involved in another program right now, what we're asking is that you close out your project before you apply for the next thing. So you can only have one award open at any given time. The only caveat I will give to that is if it's really close, talk to us. We would hate for you, if your project's going to close out on May 1st and the application deadline's April 30th, that's a conversation we should have. But if it's not close, if you're still doing work on your open grant project, or if you're still involved in another program, you'll want to finish one before moving on to the others. Any other questions we can answer?
Actually, building on that, and this is probably just specific to me, but is there a way to check? Because I don't know necessarily if somebody in another department or division maybe has a different kind of grant with you, because we're history separate from the humanities division, and I can try to ask them, but I assume if somebody else there had a grant, then that would disqualify it.
Actually, no. For large
okay.
institutions like
okay.
colleges and universities, each department or entity within it, this also applies to government. So for example, if you're coming from like a municipal government, it may be that your library and your history center both have a grant open with us. Those are circumstances that are okay. It's one of the things we will check for you. We're happy to check for you at any point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Just to be clear, if you were, if there was another history grant open, then no. But if by chance the English department at Union County College has something going on, that's not a problem.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing in history. I'm not sure 100% if the humanities division, because they have music, they have drama, they have all kinds of stuff there. I don't know if they have anything.
And I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure. I never trust my memory on these questions. Not ever. Anything else we can answer for you? Well, this is fantastic. It's always a pleasure when we can sort of give everybody back part of your day. But I am going to put a link to in the chat directly to the Humanities Lab page on our website. Like I said, it is under at njhumanities.org under programs. You'll find Humanities Lab. And I really do, if you have questions along the way, or if you want to talk about the specific circumstances for your project, we would love to hear from you. So whether that's as part of the official, quote unquote, official interview, or if you just, want to drop us a quick email with a question, we're always happy to do that. I know some circumstances may be very particular to your organization, and that is not a problem. I thought of one more thing that I would love to just share really quickly, which is I think many of you probably know that grants, not just from NJCH, but in general, are very, very competitive. We created programs like Humanities Lab to offer inroads to folks who might not, in a very competitive process, even wonderful, really developed, really strong projects do not get funded through grants programs because we simply run out of money before we run out of good projects to fund. Humanities Lab applications are generally speaking less competitive. It's hard to make a determination of exactly what our percentage of funding will be, of participation, invitation will be. At this time, we've only run this program once before. We actually piloted this program last year. But last year, we were able to take about 60% of the people who came in. And indeed, we were a little disappointed that we couldn't get every single applicant in there. So if you are genuinely committed to participating in this process, we really want to try to make sure we have space for you in this process. Also understanding limitations of budget and literal space. Would be hard to have 100 organizations participating at once in the Humanities Lab. Might lose a little bit of that lab spirit if we did. But we would be happy to keep you posted along the way. And if there are questions that come up, we encourage you to get in touch with us. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.
They say thank